In this video lesson, we're going to look at a quick review of the ideas of perimeter and area. This is important for students in the Math 10 course because, as we know, Chapter 1 of the course is all about measurement, but we also have to apply those measurements as part of problems to solve. And this course assumes that students remember how to find perimeter and area of simple figures, which makes those ideas excellent for applying measurement. Let's begin with some reminders about perimeter. Perimeter is the distance around the outside edge of a closed figure, and it's always measured in units of length, so answers about a perimeter should always include units. As a couple of reminders about ideas related to perimeter, we know that all the sides of the square, as well as all the sides of an equilateral triangle, are congruent. This word means that all of those sides are the same length. We also know that opposite sides of a rectangle are congruent. In a sketch, we can represent this using some marks on the sides of the rectangle to show that this side is the same length as this one, and that these two sides are the same length. We also know that two of the sides of an isosceles triangle are congruent. So we might see perimeter questions that deal with squares, equilateral triangles, rectangles, and isosceles triangles that look like they don't show us all the information, but in fact do. If asked to find the perimeter of this rectangle, some students might look at this and decide that all they have to do is add together the numbers shown and say that the perimeter of the rectangle is 22 centimeters. Unfortunately, those students have made a mistake. Because we know that this figure is a rectangle, we also can use the information to add the other sides that aren't shown. When we find this perimeter, you might be most comfortable adding up all of the side lengths individually. On the other hand, you might make use of the fact that opposite sides are congruent and save yourself a little addition using one of the two strategies here. Either by taking two groups of 7 and two groups of 15, or by adding the 7 and 15 together first and doubling. Regardless of the strategy you use, every grade 10 student should be able to comfortably say that the perimeter of this rectangle is 44 centimeters. And this is a good time to remind ourselves that our answer does need to include those units of length, in this case, centimeters. Another reminder when we're dealing with perimeter is about circles. The perimeter of a circle gets a special name. It's called the circumference of the circle. We can represent the circumference of this circle as either 2 multiplied by pi, multiplied by the radius of the circle, or as pi multiplied by the diameter of the circle. As a very important reminder for this course, when we talk about pi, we no longer want students to type 3.14 into their calculator. That's because your graphing calculator actually has the full value of pi programmed into it. To get the value of pi, you're going to push the second button, and then over here, just underneath the clear button, you'll see pi as a symbol in the same color as your second button. Second, and this button will allow you to use the full value of pi, and that's what we're expected to do for this course. In this example, we're going to find the perimeter of this shape, which has a radius of 2 inches. We can fill that in on both the radii drawn, and notice that we also have 3/4 of a circle, so the perimeter is going to involve 3/4 of the circumference. For some students, you may be most comfortable calculating the circumference as one part of a calculation, and then going from there. Other students might be more comfortable working with the entire perimeter at once, the 2 and 2 and 3/4 of the circumference. Whatever you feel most comfortable with is entirely acceptable, so long as you show your thinking. In the end, our goal would be for all students to be able to say with confidence that this perimeter is somewhere around 13.4 inches. The other major idea that we need to review in this video lesson is the idea of area. Area is all of the space inside a two-dimensional figure, and area is measured in squared units. In other words, squared centimeters or squared feet. In your previous math classes, you've learned how to find the area of a rectangle, its length multiplied by its width. You've learned how to find the area of a triangle. Your teacher may have talked about 1/2 of the base multiplied by the height, or they may have talked about base multiplied by height divided by 2. One important thing to mention here is that the base and the height of a triangle that we use have to be perpendicular to each other. This is the mathematical symbol for perpendicular, and all it really means is that the base and the height have to make a 90-degree angle. The other formula that we expect you've seen before for area is area of a circle. The area of a circle is calculated as pi multiplied by r squared. And it's also important to keep in mind here with our order of operations, squaring the radius must happen before multiplying by pi. So in this case, if we're looking at finding the area of this rectangle, we would look at 7 multiplied by 15. This is a nice time to practice some mental math. 7 groups of 10 and 7 groups of 5. Or use your calculator, that's all right too. But we hope that all of our grade 10 students will be able to tell us that the area of this particular rectangle is 105 squared centimeters, and remind you including the units is very important. Now we revisit our 3/4 of a circle again. We're asked to find the area of this shape that has a radius of 2 inches. Well, we know that the area of a circle generally is pi multiplied by the radius squared, and in this case we have 3/4 of a circle, so we're going to take 3/4 of that area. Performing this calculation, you might look at 3 divided by 4 multiplied by pi multiplied by 2 squared, and your graphing calculator will know to perform the squaring first. Perhaps you notice that ultimately you're multiplying and dividing by 4, which undo each other, and the answer is going to be the same thing as 3 pi. Maybe you use 0.5. It really doesn't matter how you get to the answer, so long as a grade 10 student, you can confidently say that the area of this particular figure is going to be approximately 9.42 squared inches. Remember that the goal of this video lesson was for students to be able to correctly find the perimeter of any polygon and correctly find the area of any shape that can be broken down into rectangles, triangles, and/or circles. This is so that you can find perimeter or area as part of larger problems, and especially so that you can apply your area skills to correctly find the surface area of three-dimensional figures.